Okay, so I think we are actually live now. So excellent. Yeah, we'll have some little tiny hiccups here and there. This is part of working online, right? So anyway, um, Tim, thank you for joining us. All the way from Texas, is that right?
Yep,
From Fort
Texas,
Worth.
North Texas. Yeah.
Wow, I'm always amazed by how internet puts people together from different parts
Yeah.
of the whole world, right? So, okay, before we start diving into Tim and his world of juggling, this is the last episode of this series of 5 episodes of Meet the Jugglers Live, and celebrating the 10th anniversary of this book that I wrote, Pearls of Juggling. It was a book that took me about 5 years to write, and I crowd about 200 odd people crowd chipped in to crowdfund it, and I worked with a comic school, and it's got all these like crazy illustrations in it, and basically, let me find my favorite illustration so I can just share it, and I'll talk about a little about this, and then this is my favorite illustration in it, and
Whoa.
this illustration here essentially is the 5 elements, which are 5 different qualities of moving. So we're not just water, we can be wind, we can be fire, you can be very grounded, very earthy, very slow. And this all comes together when we talk about movement quality. So, okay, let's go back over to Tim. So, Tim, I've really enjoyed watching your videos on Instagram, especially your breakdown tutorial style ones, where I can fully see your process and you're like how to get this trick going. It's like this, and then you just like break it down and just make it really just allows me to enjoy the process of like how you like Nate, you like just going for it until you get it working, right? And this is what we all do, like hidden behind closed doors, jugglers generally, right? So it's very nice to see this, to see you sharing your creative um, take on it. And we're just going to go through it a little bit more, but just to start off, probably just ask you this: like, where did you get the idea to even do this in the first place? These videos where you take a trick and you break it down and you want to share it. Tell us a little bit about that, if you like to.
Uh, there was this was a few years back now, but I was watching this one parkour athlete, and he had like somewhat similar type of videos where he would like kind of show his process of like trying to learn a trick, and I was like, oh wow, that's really cool. I really wish somebody would like do something very similar to that, but like for juggling and circus arts. And I realized that that burden was going to fall on me. And but like since creating those videos, I really do enjoy like making it, and it kind of like also helped me like understand how I learn. So I'm not just like helping others who are like watching the videos, but I'm also helping myself understand how I think about a trick and how I break it down to learn it.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Because we become much more aware whenever when we film ourselves, there is an awareness which comes out, and we're much more
Mhm.
present with it as well. And
Yeah.
so so yeah, that makes sense to me. We always learn. Even as teachers, I learn more than anybody learns always. And and everybody learns a lot in sort of like basically the retreats I teach and the workshops and that. But I really learn more, and I'm stimulated by it. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it right anymore. So let's go move up to this part here, because I find that almost like the more interesting jugglers have come from sort of like physical practices before they're juggling. Um, you just come into juggling with a different mindset than someone like me, for example. I did judo when I was younger, but I had lost contact with my body basically when I discovered juggling again. So then I started doing acrobatics and things afterwards. But it's it didn't have that sort of like energy in it that people meeting with juggling for coming from parkour. I think that's probably something interesting.
I lost you there for half a second.
Ah, okay.
Uh,
So
yeah,
how was this shift from parkour to juggling? Like how was this encounter with juggling? Let's say like this.
yeah, okay. So just to preface, I started doing parkour when I was like 12 or 13. So it was like the first sport or art form or whatever you want to call it of movement that I had like really like practiced and like encountered with. And I think I had been training parkour for about 6 or 7 years when I first came into contact with juggling. And there was a few other like friends of mine who had already like hit the crossroads and they were trying to teach me how to juggle and I just like immediately fell in love with it. But yeah, it was like this, I don't know, it was I was already so used to like expressing myself through like doing these like really grandiose flips and tricks, but like juggling had a much more like finesse to it. Like it was more micro movements. There was a little bit more of a more playful attitude towards it as well.
Hmm.
So I think that's kind of what drew me into it.
Okay. It's this is like this is the thing I'm most interested in is this playful side of things. So obviously I'm going to say Tim, talk about that a bit more. Like what does that mean even, you know? I mean, I know what it means, but like it's always good to hear it from somebody else, right? So why was parkour like less playful and you found juggling more playful? What did it just turn on for you? What
I
is it
think
turning on for you?
there's so many more like facets to like play around with in juggling. I think like both of the art forms are like full body movements, but it's just kind of like I can with parkour, it's almost like you kind of have to do this thing right, otherwise you might get yourself hurt. Whereas like with juggling, there's you have a lot more to branch out with and a lot more to play around with and like I could play with like the club around like this area of my body, whereas like in parkour, there's this part of my body really isn't going to like interact with any environment or surface that much. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That makes sense because when we play, we are essentially creating variations. So we're changing rhythm, we're changing what part
Mhm.
of the body we're using, we're changing the spatial orientation, we're changing the rhythm, the speed. Um, yeah, there's so many variations. Any tiny little variation puts us immediately into this curious state. And if we're coming from what ifs, then it just amplifies the whole thing. So
Mhm.
what so how is your what ifs when you're juggling? What are your what ifs like? Are you thinking like do you know what I mean by what ifs? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I understand yeah. So like say if I was like practicing one trick and I was like, what if instead of like doing it here, I do it like somewhere else or in like a different manner, right? Yeah. So like typically there'll be like a trick. Maybe I'm not like the original creator of that trick, but I'll see somebody do a trick and maybe I'll want that trick like exactly how I see it. But then once I start training it, my body's not going to be the same as like the other person's body. And so maybe I might want to move slightly different whenever I'm trying to learn that trick. And then that kind of is like the origin of a whole different variation. And of course, there's like we said, like that playful aspect to it, where it's like, okay, well, maybe I did it this way, but I could probably play around with like my other body parts. Like, what if I do it under my arm? What if I do it under my leg? And that's what I've been really like focusing a lot on. in the past year, year and a half. Like every single trick that I have learned, say it's like the vanilla trick, the base trick, I want to figure out how I can incorporate more of my body into that trick. So like catching or throwing under the leg, playing around with the ankle, the foot, like everything, the hips, like even all the way up here to like your ears and everything. And there's like so many different like fun little variations that you can come up with. Even if it's just like one trick, you can make like maybe 30 tricks out of that just by messing around with the location and the body and everything like that.
Hmm. Yeah, so this is already coming to mindset, and this is what I was very interested in hearing from you, Tim. Um, so it's not so much, so you're not so much stimulated by doing more and more difficult things. Um, it's more a question of just expanding your vocabulary, or how is it? Probably somewhere in the middle as well, right?
Yeah, no, I like how you phrase that. Like, yeah, it's I resonate with that. The expanding the vocabulary. That's a really good way of like describing it because juggling and like a lot of other art forms, but it's a language and it's a language that we're all trying to like speak together. And like, there's been plenty of times where I'm traveling, I don't know that language, but or know like, the spoken language, but we can still communicate through juggling and like talk about tricks in a similar manner. And it's super interesting because yeah, I just really want to expand my vocabulary and less of the difficulty. Like I don't really care so much about the difficulty of a trick. I much more care about like the aesthetics and like the visual and like trying to make a really nice visual and like maybe a really nice shape and just like playing around with that and incorporating the body.
Yeah. So what are the components would you say that make up like good juggling aesthetics?
Oh yeah. We've already talked about the body. So like not only like body shape, but like there's like different poses that like the body can do. And I really like thinking about like a frame of like so like say somebody snapped a picture shot and it was like of like your body like stretched out in one way and trying to figure out how to get to that frame and then how to exit out of that frame, but also just going back to the visuals, like also making really like cool shapes. Recently, I've been into like stacks, which is like the clubs being like parallel to one another, whether it's like vertically or
Yeah.
horizontal. Yeah. And so yeah, just really trying to like create an overall image that at least in my opinion, I would find visually pleasing, if that makes any sense.
Yes. So you're opening up lots of boxes with this work, and
Yeah.
so what to do with all this material, right? It's like, what do you do with it? Do you put it together? It's like some people they put together a sequence and then they film it and then it's okay, that's put to one side. Other
Mhm.
people they'll want to practice all the different things, so like every day becomes a bit longer, so you end up practicing more and more time. How do you decide what to do in a training session? Are you thinking about it already before your session? Are you writing that down notes? How is your process in before you actually in your space?
Yeah, there like you said, there's a lot. You have you have the notes. Like I do take notes occasionally. Usually it's only whenever I'm like traveling to different conventions and I'm just bombarded with all these new tricks. And I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to remember all these tricks. So usually on like the plane flight back or on the trip back, I'm just like writing them all down and whatever best way to like describe it to where I can remember it in the future.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Um, there's so much that like really like goes into it. But yeah, I think I do also like I really do enjoy making like these little tiny sequences, like you said, and just like, and I feel like if juggling is a language, then the sequence would be like a sentence, and a trick would be the words. So just like putting those little sentences together, and then eventually, if I have like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 sentences sequences, I can like configure those to make one paragraph, and then onto a whole story to make a whole book, and then
Wow. And how's your memory with building sequences? Because I know like lots of jugglers that have big issues with memorizing. You know, they'll create something and then this process is a real effort. Or is that part of your building up process that you're like coming back to the beginning each time as you build up? So then it
Mhm.
just rams it in your brain, in your
Yeah,
body as well.
I have definitely forgotten quite a few of my own tricks that I've created in the past. Like and I'm sure this is going to happen more and more, especially like the longer you train, you're like your memory just can't go that far back. I've been training for about 10 years now, so I haven't I'm only feeling like the beginnings of it, but I have met like much more like jugglers who have been training longer, and they're just like, yep, I forgot all these tricks. I was like, yeah. But I really do like the way that I train personally, because uh I'll try to repeat that trick and drill that trick enough times to where I don't have to remember it here. I can just like, it becomes muscle memory, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
And I mean, it's super tricky, and it takes a lot of time, very time intensive to like really get a trick from here into like your fingertips, into your wrists, into your arms. Uh, but that I think that's like, and at least from my experience, I think that's the most useful way to combat the hard memory. I can't just remember every single trick. As long as I remember the start of a trick, I'm kind of I can do the rest of it and do the whole sequence usually.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Excellent. So it it's we even see it when I don't even try it to find juggling. I'm not it's not I know it has millions of different expressions.
Right.
Um
Yeah.
there's not even but it's um where am I going with this? So yeah, so there's like it's I've always thought like the art of juggling, the real art of juggling is knowing how to motivate yourself. So like knowing what you're interested in as well. And
Hmm.
I've seen it change a lot in 30 years that I've been juggling. And before really the only like motivating thing was really like learning more and more difficult things. You know, that
Hmm.
was the only way. Or you're a performer and your motivation is to keep your act going. So that's what you're in your practice for. And so what I'm actually really interested in is juggling as a practice in itself. And this is where we go into playfulness as well, where um, its intrinsic value is just doing the thing in itself. It's we don't need we're not doing it for any particular other goals. We always have like other little goals, you know, like um um of course there are other little ambitions and all this, but they don't even need to be there. It's how we feel more like glowing and alive and loose afterwards is already the it's what we're doing it for, right? So so let's go a little bit into self-expression and coming from a point of view as a creator and how all this works together and how this is working on your brain and your being and how this shows up in other areas of your life maybe.
Hmm. Yeah. I think just like the process of not knowing a trick, and then into learning a trick, into making a variation of that trick. It's all just like these little tiny little different stages, which is like very similar to like doing things, anything in life. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways is like being able to like see something and then like break that down into like smaller bite-sized parts to where like I can like, digest that easily and then I can move on to the next step. I always like to just baby steps. That's usually what I call it, is just like trying to just take baby steps because like those small little progressions over time will like accumulate into like something that's just so big and so, important.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you do when like let's say you see a trick that you never seen before and you can't you're finding it really difficult to do it. Do you keep going until you actually nail it, or you like you at a certain point you say I'm going to come back to this tomorrow, or I'm going to what is stopping me from getting this now, or how is it be your approach? Of course, it'll be different for different tricks, right? But like generally, let's
Mhm.
say.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes if you've built a good enough like foundation with juggling, and like you'll see this a lot, like with more experienced jugglers, they'll kind of like get a trick in like 5 minutes, but that's because they have like all of the prerequisites to do that trick. And so like for like beginner jugglers, it'll be harder to have that strong foundation. So it might take you like days, weeks, months to learn a new trick. And so I think there's always a balance that comes with like trying to learn new tricks. At least that's what I find. And sometimes I do have to like sit down with myself and be like, okay, I'm not gonna be able to get like realistically, I won't be able to get this whole trick today. Maybe I'll have to come back to it tomorrow, or just like kind of just being patient with myself, like balancing optimism with reality, and just like, yeah, okay, I wanted this today, but we will just like take those, like I said, the baby steps. And so like sometimes I'll just have to break it down into like three parts, and I'll be like, okay, well, I'll just work on each part each day. So I could just like work on one part for one day, the second part the second day, and then the third part the third day. And then by the fourth day, I've laid down that like really solid foundation for myself, and then just like combining them, which combining the parts is also a whole process. Sometimes I forget, but that's also just like another thing. But I think that's like the healthiest way that I find that I learn a new trick, especially for like one of those big daunting tricks where you're like, oh no, this is impossible. I try not to tell myself that at all. I
Like
just
what, like for example?
oh, like a trick that I thought was impossible. Yeah, buzz saws, I think. If you're not familiar with buzz saws, it's the one where it's like swinging inside, and I'm doing it's like a circular motion. That
Oh,
one, to this day, was the hardest trick that
buzz
that,
saws.
yeah, buzz saw. Have you seen those before?
No,
Yeah,
you show me. Show us. Go on.
can you see this?
Yeah. Ah, right. Yeah, yeah. Got you. They're horrible. They're horrible. I didn't know they're called buzz saws.
Yeah,
Man.
that that was the hardest trick that I've ever learned. They fell.
Yeah, Skittle. I'm
Yeah,
bowling.
yeah, that one took the longest for me to learn overall, but like it took a lot of like perseverance and just like really just like working with like one club and like figuring out how it moves like through the fingers and like the how the wrist needs to move and like does the elbow do anything? What's the timing for the shoulder? So there was like so many like minute, detailed yeah, these little minute details that just I had to like figure out how it worked. Like I really had to break that trick down. And then on top of just that, there's the fact that like for some tricks, you have a pretty like forgiving, like I like to call it a window. Like you have a window of like before it just completely breaks down, before it like completely fails. And Buzzsaw just has a really tiny window because like you really it's like all in between. It's in this tiny little area, and so like the window of pass and fail for that trick is just very small, and just all of those little things put together made an extremely difficult trick. Yeah, super
But
glad
once
I
you've
have
got
it
it, it
now.
feels amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. So, what other power? Because I'm wondering, like, where did you get this mindset from? Was it because obviously it's coming from what you did before juggling, but like, what was it? How did anything? How did? Well, I'm sure you didn't just do parkour, but what other sort of creative things that you did beforehand that have helped you see and have the patience also to learn these tricky tricks, and like to
Yeah.
see them with clarity and
Uh, I think even before parkour, I was like already into like building things like Legos, Bionicles, and like so I really already had that like that mindset for building and and I like seeing like the small little progress of like of just like putting these little two things, you put two and two together, it makes four, and then you put four and four together, and it makes eight, and then all of a sudden you finish your entire, I don't know, 3D puzzle or whatever building you were trying to build. Yeah, there was a, I had a thought and I lost it. It hopefully it'll come back to me.
okay.
But yeah, uh, is oh yeah, I was into art. I really like drawing and like painting for a bit. Up until I was like 14 or so. But and just like I don't know, just I think that that already helped me early on in my early life to like get used to just like taking my time and just like doing slow but like thoughtful progression, I think is just like that was like the key. And I took that with me everywhere I went, from a little kid building Legos to, you know, teenager painting, doing parkour, into juggling. One other huge aspect that like really like I think solidified this thought process of like that slow building is that in parkour, like if you try and do something that's like way too hard for you too fast, you'll straight up just risk injuring yourself. And
Yeah.
yeah, you can't overshoot something. Like you can't overshoot your own confidence or for lack of better terms. So you really have to like inch up into that the say my goal trick is here. Well, let me work on everything that leads up to here. Because if I try and like do something even harder than that and I know I'm not ready for it, I will injure myself and then I'll be out of the game for like, I don't know, months.
Yeah, yeah,
And
you wipe out
yeah,
big time.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
I
gets
think this
dangerous.
force yeah, I think this
Yeah.
forces you, like forces us to visualize it big time, like what it
Yeah.
is we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
And this is an under I often say this, I often think that like the really good jugglers, artists, and sports people in general, they have spent a lot of time visualizing, like not even aware. They're so passionate about what they're doing, they're just in it and it's in them, and they're actually seeing not just with the eyes what they're doing. It's the whole brain, the whole body is actually seeing what they're doing. So it's like activated to another level. Mhm. Was that your experience with being around parkour people? Was that what they're up to? Was it
Oh
just
yeah.
just how, people don't talk about this
1000%.
stuff though?
Yeah, yeah, 1000%. Yeah, it's just like there's 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 a challenge that we're trying to like get, and typically it'd be like a group of like, I don't know, three or four people, and we're all just kind of like trying whatever the goal is. And we'll be talking amongst ourselves. And sometimes we'll just literally have to like sit there and like visualize like how am I gonna do this swing or how am I gonna like vault over this wall? And so it's like a huge like you really have to like embody what's going to happen. Like how do I do this to make it to like to optimize it? Like how do I optimize my movements to like make everything not only work but like be effortless as well. And so I took that and I think this is all like a subconscious like process, but
Of course.
it got ingrained into me. And I think once I moved on to parkour, I came with a much more unique perspective to the entire art form that I don't really see prevalent in the juggling community. So hopefully I can like help spread that like
Yeah, no,
other
what
perspective.
what we're talking about today, this is super important, and especially this
Mhm.
last thing was very visual as it came out, and I know this, and it's great to hear it said from someone who's living it right now, and so that's it. You want to learn, you have to sit down and really imagine yourself doing it. It's not
Ah.
just throwing things randomly about. It's really and there's a very famous marketing um, guru, marketing guru, they call this Seth Godin, and he teaches people juggling, and he says it's the art of throwing. It's not the art of catching. It's
Mm.
like catching. We're
Mhm.
all good at catching all over the place.
Mhm.
That's stressful. It's like a juggler throws, and he's relaxed when he's catching. So it's these kind of things which are so important to improve our practice, and just get more out of it. And yeah,
Yeah, I like that. I like that perspective a lot because I think the place, at least in juggling, where like that shows, like it like really shows itself, is whenever you're passing with another juggler. Uh, I think there's you can see the clear difference between a positive feed cycle and a negative feed cycle. Because if both of the passers are just like focusing on the catch, then the actual pattern usually never works like that. But like the moment you tell both of the passing jugglers to like, okay, focus on making the best throw possible, and then just trust the other person that the pass will be coming in right like where it needs to be. Then everything starts to flow, it starts to work, it starts to function. And it's really interesting. I haven't dived deep into that because I'm mostly a solo juggler, but it's just a really interesting observation that I made.
yeah, 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 yeah. So Tim, how do you see your juggling and your art evolving in the next 5 years?
I really don't know. I try not to like set anything in stone in the future. I just
Yeah,
really like to take things day by day, and wherever that leads me, that's where it leads me. But I think an important thing is each day I'm always focusing on something that I value. And so I think as long as I do that, it'll take me to wherever I need to be, wherever I want to be. Uh, but yeah, I'm not sure. I'll probably still be doing very similar things, or I'll be creating. That's all I really know. It may not even be juggling. Hopefully it is, but I'll just be creating forever.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Excellent. Excellent. That's really important. I did a workshop with West Beacon a long time ago. I think about 13, 12 years ago, probably.
Mhm.
And he remembered he was in a circus school in Sweden, and they were asked, "Why do you juggle?" And he realized it was because he loves creating, and from then he just created. He put all his energy into that. So, but it might not be that might not be everybody's reason, right? That we like juggling because we like creating. It can be also very frustrating the creative process, and very um, make us feel very vulnerable as well. You know, we're creating something, we don't know if it's any good, or
Yeah.
um, and how do you? One of the last things we probably talk about is how do you navigate like discouragement? You know, when
Mm.
yeah, because we all feel discouraged sometimes. You know, it goes up and down, but how do you navigate that?
Yeah. That's a huge one. Discouragement. Just like I think uh, at least I feel like a lot of people like they're already like discouraged at like where they currently are, like their current level. Maybe it's skill level, or maybe it's like maybe they don't feel like they're creative enough, or this, that, or the third. But I think there's definitely a balance there, and it's hard to find that balance between like discouragement and like using that as motivation to like push you to the just the next step. Uh, yeah, it's so difficult. There's been plenty of times where like there are just tricks that I just cannot do. Like to this day, I can only barely qualify like five object juggling, but I knew from the beginning that's not what I value. So I try not to let that discourage me that much. Uh, yeah, I think yeah, just like really sitting down with yourself and just trying not to like over compare yourself to other people, other jugglers, other creators, and just like try and just like do what's important to you. I think that's what really helps me.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, thank you for being so honest. I love it. I love it. And I hope everybody that comes across this video will share their thoughts as well, how it what inspires you, how it um yeah, what thoughts come up. Um to not It's not so much like thinking too much just to go deep dig into like to go into crisis. It's about understanding where we are, where we'd like to go, what we're excited about. Um, yeah, like you're saying, what the next steps are. What is it that you value? Very important things. What is it that you value? Um, so there's lots of different things that we've taken away from this meeting today, Tim. And cool. So I'll ask you to sum up some like your final things you want to say. I'm just gonna say a couple more things about my book, about the process of it, because I um I did a lot of street performing and a lot of self-taught juggling, and then I ended up going to this um, physical theatre school in Switzerland for 3 years, and I'd already had like I was very into yoga, but not like yoga. Like it's an internal discipline in the end. You know, you do fancy things, right? But it's a way of being and carrying yourself in the world. So this book was my desire to put these things together. Like you were saying, you know, it's like, oh, I wish somebody would make this video like the parkour people do. Oh, that's me, right? So, and this was like for me, so this is what I would have liked to had like 25, 30 years ago, you know. It's like what's calling me, you know. This is true for everybody. When we see these things that are missing, they're calling us to fill them. It's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do in my life. I don't know, look around you a second, there's like things calling out to you, like it's uh it's quite clear that like this. So anyway, this, if anybody's interested in this, you can download a PDF copy, going to anthonytraher.com/juggling. And there's also, I've put together like a 7 sequence email that talks a little bit more about the work in this book, and asks you some questions, and just to help people get more into the juggling. And probably the last thing I'm just going to talk about is that I've been holding like these residential retreats for jugglers for um, 25 years, 26 years, and they're incredible encounters. They're very community based, very. taking the judgment out, but going really deep into your body, really deep into your practice, having time really to dedicate to yourself to juggling, to expression, creativity. Incredible. I've seen incredible things happen in these retreats. The next one is in Italy, 22nd to the 27th of September. Tim, please hand it over to you now to close final whatever you feel like you want to want to share now.
Uh, that's a lot, but uh, to anybody watching, just trust in yourself, believe in yourself, figure out what you value, what will help you, try and like balance out that healthiness. Try not to, be paralyzed in discouragement, and sometimes the next step isn't going to come from motivation. Sometimes you really gotta discipline yourself and do something that you may not like just a little bit in the moment to like achieve and get what you want in the future, what you really, really value. Uh, yeah, just be yourself, be true to yourself. I think that's the most important thing. Try to have fun. It's not always serious. Like we're talking about juggling, but we're really just tossing these like plastic objects in the air at the end of the day. So you don't really have to take it that serious. Like have fun with it. I think some of the best things I've ever created was because I was just being goofy, having fun, and enjoying the moment. Yeah.
That's a beautiful way to end this session. So thank you for watching, everybody. If you've enjoyed it, let us know in the comments.